Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, Objectively Dan, and joining me this week is the Lavender Lady, aka Diana, from the YouTube channel, The Lavender Lady. Diana, how's it going tonight?
Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Yes, I am Diana Clary and the Lavender Lady, and everything is wonderful over here in the Lavender Studio. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge I would love to sell you. Actually, it's doing pretty well. How is it with you?
Man, things are going really great tonight. In case you haven't noticed, guys who are watching this at home from the video feed, I am wearing a Truth Wanted hat tonight. Just got this puppy in this week. We are trying to open up a store with this kind of merch and other ACA merch. If you actually come to the studio in Austin, we actually have some t-shirts and stuff to sell. And hopefully we'll get some hats up there soon. But yeah, just rocking the new hat tonight. Look, you know you've made it in the YouTube world if you can wear your own merch. That's all I'm saying. Right?
Okay, I'll have to look forward to that.
Look, let me tell you, it's a satisfying thing. Now, to say that I did anything to earn this, I don't know. But I look, it's my show, man. It's cool. I get to have a hat for it, so I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm hoping to get down to your neighborhood. I'd really like to make it to the Faithless Forum in April and take a little trip down to Austin. And hopefully, if I can pick up some merch and say hi to you and everybody else down there. And
I will be there at Faithless Forum this next April as well, so you should definitely check
it out. I like it.
For sure. So Lavender Lady, a.k.a. Diana. Diana is joining us here tonight. She has a YouTube channel where she talks about skepticism, being transgender, and everything else in between. I mean, like, you just cover a lot of topics on your show. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do on YouTube?
Yeah, my main show right now is what I call Coffee with Lavender. It's sort of a chat show. Think of Mike Douglas for the internet, for those of you old enough to remember Mike Douglas. Just have people on talking to them about who they are, what they do, talking about things that are happening in the general time frame. These last couple of weeks, for example, we had some transgender-related talk. The most recent show I had was called Coming to Terms, basically about the terms and definitions that are associated with the LGBT movement. And before that was, are you transphobic if you would rather not date a trans person, and other types of shows I've had. I also interview some YouTube personalities. I had geologist Stephen Bauman on recently. I had Aaron Ra on prior to the protest that was in July. I had him. It turned out to be Mother's Day, and I had no idea that I was doing it on Mother's Day, but that kind of caused an interesting little thing going on there. He actually ended up coming onto my show 6 hours late, but it did still work out. And he's a big sweetie. I love that man. I really do.
And we were talking about this a little bit before the show. I want Aaron on this program. Aaron and I have talked about him being on, but here's the thing. Aaron lives close enough to here where we can get him in person. So I definitely want to make that happen instead of just doing it over the internet, because he is he's quite the personality to behold, I gotta say.
Yes, he's a very the word that comes to mind is imposing. A forceful personality.
I describe him as my grandma's version of what a Satanist is. You know? Like, he's just, he's got that look to him that looks like a biker gang leader, but at the same time is also just the biggest sweetheart if you really meet him in person. He is
absolutely nice. He's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
A Klingon teddy bear, but a teddy bear nonetheless. Yeah. He's a great hugger, by the way.
Oh yeah, I you know what? I don't know if I've done that one, but I can only imagine. I can only imagine with his frame for sure. But anyway, so what compelled you to kind of start, doing your talk show on YouTube and just like being in the YouTube space in general?
Okay, besides spilling coffee all over myself, which was not one of the reasons I did that. I've been thinking about that sort of thing for years. I had always been thinking, I'm watching the other personalities. I'm watching Aaron. I'm watching Mortimer 81, if you're familiar with him. I'm watching Kate, Bionic Dance, and I'm thinking I would really like to be able to do that stuff. For a long time, money was the problem because a camera was quite expensive. A decent internet connection was not cheap, that sort of thing. But just recently, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started working with a channel called NCG Studios. The NCG stood for New Covenant Group. And this was somebody who claimed that he was not a Christian. He was a kind of pastoral type of person, but he was claiming he was not a Christian, a bit of an iconoclast, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I was the token transy. I was the token atheist. And, we basically did that sort of thing. And it's unfortunate that we were not the best fit, but I have no regrets about working with Dr. Jones. I really don't. And that really got my thoughts going with, okay, maybe I can finally do this, because I actually bought a camera and everything else. And I had a little bit of a setup where I could actually do the thing. And ended up moving to where I am from where I was. You usually do move to where you are from where you were, but that's beside the point. And the setup I have here, it was that much easier for me to do a show. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to start a channel, bloviate a little bit. I was doing response videos, mostly to a channel called Catholic Answers. Me being an ex-Catholic, it was a perfect fit. And I had no idea no presumption that I was going to get anywhere with this. It was just, I'm just going to sit there and do my thing and everything's going to be okay. And somebody by the name of Johnny Drive-By, thank you, Johnny, discovered one of my videos. He said, hey, darling, this is good. I hope you keep this stuff up. And before I knew it, I was on one of his after shows. I was meeting people he knew and got involved with a group of YouTube content creators. And that really kickstarted me. That was early 2017. It's going to be almost 2 years that I've been on the air. And it became so much fun that I said, okay, I've got to just keep this going. Finally ended up doing live streams, and I dearly love the live streams. It's a lot like this, where you're spontaneous. Somebody's, conversation. You don't quite know what's coming next, but it's beautiful anyway. So here I am, take it or leave it. And I'm having all the fun in the world. I'm loving every minute of this.
Isn't it just the funnest thing ever? I think so.
Yeah.
Anybody who's considering starting a YouTube channel for whatever you want to do, go for it. Especially in the past couple of years, in kind of this, I don't want to say skeptic community because it's broader than that. It's really just all the communities have been making, there's been more content creators in the past couple of years. And I would consider myself a small content creator with a really good studio set up here since we are in the ACA studio here. And I have a fantastic team of people who help volunteer alongside with me every week to make this show happen. So shout out to those guys in the back who help make that. There's the camera for those guys.
Looking at your numbers over here, and if you're calling yourself a small channel, at 5,500 subscribers, what the hell am I?
Here's the problem, because I'm friends with people like Drew McCoy, genetically modified skeptic, and like Holy Kool-Aid, and these guys who have whose numbers are like factorials of mine, or what is that? They're powers of mine, I guess, exponentially bigger than this. So I see myself as a small fish in the big, what is it? Small fish in the big pond. That's not the phrase.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's a long.
I get the point. Yeah.
The point is, I get to meet really cool people who have way bigger subscribers than me, and people who have smaller subscribers than me, and everywhere in between, because like it and it doesn't feel like there's a power difference there, because like everyone's pretty cool and we all get to kind of just hang out and just talk. And I really like that about kind of the world that we live in. It's pretty open and accessible to just like, hey, yeah, you want to make content? Here, let me help you out. Here's some good pointers doing this.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
So yeah, it's just fun.
What was really amazing to me, I got on a Discord server that Logic was running, and I got assistance with one of the videos I was making from none other than Martimer81. And I was very, very honored to have that. There was a question about causality that I was wondering about, and he was the person I thought of asking, and he was so helpful. Well, he was already a Facebook friend, but still, to get help from a big name like that, it's just like, wow. And then when I got to work with Aaron on the NCT Studios show, he was on a couple of times. It's like, yeah, man, it's like fangirling all over the place.
Yeah.
But then it comes to the point where you're interacting with these folks just like normal people who put their pants on one leg at a time, and these big names are talking to you eye to eye.
Yeah.
You're not talking up or you're not talking down. It's they're just like you, and it's holy shit, that's amazing.
Right? Say what you will about the internet, but the internet has really brought, I don't want to say famous people, because I don't know if you'd call these people really famous, but they're well-known people in our circles. Like it's evened out the playing field a lot. Like it's really opened up. Like, hey, here's a video of my house, and here's what I do every day. It's like, oh, like you can actually see. Hey, they put on their pants one leg at a time, just like I do, and it's like, oh, like I can do this thing too, and it's really encouraging to see a lot of that kind of stuff. Well, folks, this is a call-in show. In case you're new to this is Truth Wanted. This is the show where we talk about what people believe and why. If you want to call into this show, definitely call in at the number below. And we tried this thing last week where we talked on Discord after the show, and we liked it so much we want to keep making it a thing. So if you're watching this live, definitely stick around and join on the Atheist Community of Austin Discord. And we're going to chat. And Diana's going to be joining us, I think, as well, at least for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to, sincerely. I'll tell you what, I love the shows I do, but even better than the shows are the after shows.
Yeah.
I'll have folks, well, Kate Farr is one of the fixtures on my after show. It's great having her there. She's like sharp as a tack, very easy to talk to. She drives the whole after show. And then the topics will just go wherever they go, and it's wonderful.
So definitely
some of that. Yeah,
stick around for that if you're watching this live, and if you're watching a pre-recorded show of this, check us out next week, because like I said, I want to keep making this an ongoing thing week to week, so definitely join in on that live. But I think it's about time we start getting to some calls. Are you ready?
Here's where we go to the hot seat. Let's go for it.
Let's do it. All right. First, I want to get to Zach in North Carolina. Zach says here, you're a theist who believes in Bigfoot and the flat earth. Zach,
all right.
What's going on, my dude?
What's up, guys?
What is up? Okay, so that's a lot. Those are three. So, like, Christianity, Bigfoot, flat earth, those are like three different roads that we could travel upon. I don't know which road you want to travel upon, but like whichever one strikes your fancy, I'd love to talk about any of those three. So, like, what's important to you there?
I can tell you
theism's most important.
Okay,
but that's the hardest, so we should probably tackle that one last.
All right. Look, I'll be honest. We talked about flat Earth like a week or two ago. That was really fun. But Bigfoot, it's been a while. I want to talk about Bigfoot. Like,
hey, that's great.
That's the easiest one. So
that's the easiest one. All right, Zach, tell me about Bigfoot, man. What makes your belief in Bigfoot like sincere? What drives that?
Well, let me just frame it this way to start off. Is we grow up in a culture where there's the Tooth Fairy and there's Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, yada yada yada, Loch Ness Monster, and you got the tabloids that like poke fun at stuff like that, and they'll group Bigfoot right in with it. But if you framed it as like the North American great ape, it would not seem unrealistic to believe in at all. It would seem like a normal animal, which is pretty much what it is. The Native Americans talked about it. There's photographic evidence. There's video evidence. There's trail cam photos. There's DNA where they tried to test it. They couldn't find any known animal match. There's footprints. There's footprints with dermal ridges. And there's scar tissue in the dermal ridges. So it's kind of like an open and shut case once you really get down to the real evidence. But on the surface, it just seems so silly because of pop culture.
Okay, yeah. So I will agree with you on that. Like, framing is definitely important. Framing is how we interpret, our worldviews and stuff, right? And the framing around Bigfoot has definitely been, in the same category as, like you said, these other topics that we talk about, Loch Ness Monster and stuff like that. So yeah, I will definitely give you that. And I think if you had presented me the same kinds of evidences that you're talking about, dermal ridges, photographic evidence, video evidence, I probably would agree with you that Bigfoot was definitely a thing. I haven't personally seen that myself, but what's up, Zach?
Yeah, if I had like a 3-hour PowerPoint, you'd
sure.
at the end of it.
And there's only so much.
I don't have the links for you right now, obviously.
There's only so much you can do on a call-in show, and I get that. There's limitations to that, but so we did talk about. So you framed it as like the North American great ape. I'm a fan of anthropology. I would say I took. When I had the option, I had to redo my sciences when I transferred schools. I took anthropology again. I loved it so much. I really liked physical anthropology. And my understanding was that there were no great apes in North America, that the New World kind of lineage of, monkeys were just that, monkeys. There weren't actually any apes, and we don't have any other origins besides us, obviously, in North America as apes. Is that true, or are you saying that this is kind of just a split of some other kind of ape?
As far as like the anthropology and like the bones, and you're saying like why aren't there it's like not a known fact there's a North American great ape, basically? Is that the question?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I
would try to chalk that up to this. They haven't found any of the bones, which is again where people are going to be like, oh, that's a giant gaping hole in your argument. But when you think about this, like the nature of like the wilderness, and when you have like a group of highly intelligent hominids that are like burying their dead and are purposefully hiding the bones, and you have animals and scavenging, and again that's hard to say there's no bone ever found. That's obviously a big hole in the argument. But when I have seen the dermal ridges, when I've seen the trail cams and the what to me is obvious evidence, then I'm not gonna go back on that because they haven't found bones.
Now, when you say you've seen them, and I'm not trying to diminish your viewpoint or or dequalify you in any sense, but when you say you've seen them, do you mean like internet research, or do you mean you've been there like in person and like looked at some of the stuff?
Internet research.
Okay, cool.
Oh, okay. Because I can say that I have personally met Bigfoot.
That's what's up. There we go.
Yes, I can. Because Aaron Ra has a story where
Aaron Ra is Bigfoot, as far as I
understand.
But
Yes.
Is that where you were going with that?
Yes,
Okay.
He tells a story about how he was being followed by coyotes while he was walking on a desert highway, and he made noises to scare them off, and that sort of thing. And the next morning, he stopped at a gas station for whatever reason. And the guy behind the counter said, yeah, you got to be careful because there were reports of Bigfoot last night. And he's standing there and he said, wait a minute. He's talking about me. And yes, I have met Aaron Ra in person. So meeting the person who's mistaken for Bigfoot is, I guess, just the same thing as that. But let's get serious about this, seriously. What I need, if I'm going to go for the existence of something like Bigfoot, is something a little more definitive than, say, a fuzzy picture or a piece of cloth on a branch or a piece of hair on a branch or something like that.
Couldn't quite hear you there, Zach.
You got fuzzy there.
You got internet right now? Like you got Google? Could you throw up an image?
Well, we are a live internet show right here, so yeah, we totally got internet. What do you want us to look up here?
If you want to punch in apple tree Bigfoot, it should be like the fourth result on like the Google images.
Apple tree Bigfoot. Okay.
Yeah.
Folks listening at home, come join us on this Google adventure here. Apple tree Bigfoot, and we'll all look together.
Let me frame it.
For sure. Yeah, go for it.
This like 60-year-old man. He said there was like apples that kept being eaten off of the tree. They're all from like 6 foot up to like 9 feet. The apples on the second of the tree. He gets out of his trail cam. First image he gets is a coyote fleeing the scene. The second one he gets is literally a mother Sasquatch and her son on the photo. Looks awesome. But it takes a while to see it because again, after it hits you and like you understand what you're looking at, it's one of my favorite photos.
So it's a trail cam vid. So it's still images, right? It's not a full video, or
yes, it's just images.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, see,
are you
go
speaking of this article that was in the New York Daily News, dateline 25 November 2012?
I'm not sure. I'm not on the internet right now, but
the headline reads, "What are the odds? Sasquatch researcher says Bigfoot ravaged apple orchard in his backyard, and he has video to prove it."
That looks like the same one from the first Google image search here that I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
So Sasquatch sighting, and this is in New England, I guess. Cool. So there's a trail cam video that may or may not be the evidence that we need to show that, Bigfoot is a thing. So okay, if Bigfoot is a thing, right? And this is the reality we've been living in. So Bigfoot has been described by Native American peoples, as you said, but as so far has escaped the realm of most scientific inquiry up until now. Like we just haven't found the right evidence of like we've never caught a live one. You're not making the claim that that's ever happened, but we have some maybe scraps of evidence that they're around and just kind of chilling out in the woods, huh?
That's correct.
Okay. Interesting, Zach. Like, man, so like what is it? So you gave a lot of lines of evidence there that support your initial belief. I would say, I would have to look at some of these, claim or the claims of evidence, right, and see if that would convince me that this is something. But I don't know. I've never personally seen, because I used to watch like History Channel and stuff. History Channel has a lot of those documentaries and stuff on Bigfoot and stuff like that. It's like it always seems like that you can always explain away some of these things, like even if you don't have everything here. Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been looking at it for like probably 4 or 5 years because my dad's like really big into it, and there's only like I would say like 5 or 6
really
photos where I'm like, that's obviously not the man in the suit that all these other ones are. There's different hoaxes. There's people that put on a ghillie suit and run across the highway and get hit by a car at 60 miles per hour because they're trying to hoax a Bigfoot scene. That just helps people say, yeah, it's all fake. It's all BS.
What do you think it would convince the public at large? Do you think there is enough evidence to make a convincing case, like at the moment, that should convince any reasonable person, or do you think there needs to be more evidence to convince kind of the public at large that this is like a real phenomenon?
If I put together a presentation like on my PowerPoint and I included all the data and I showed it to every member in America, I think it should convince most of America. But most people don't care. Most people think it's a joke, so they're not going to do it on their own.
Man.
The only thing that would actually convince America is if you like killed one and like did a dissection.
Now that would be cool.
No, I don't know. I don't know if it would be absolutely necessary to dissect one. Really.
Well, I mean, people are going to say it's fake. Even if you have a body thing, like, oh, that's the latest rubber suit.
I have to agree with Zach here.
job.
I think you would have to dissect one, because you can even. I mean, there's fake body claims all the time with this kind of stuff too.
CGI.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I say that's fake.
So here's the thing, Zach. I care about your belief, and like if you actually took the time out of your day to make a PowerPoint, I will watch that sucker and I will talk about it here on Truth.
Yes, so will I. I'd like to be in on it.
100%, dude.
Conversation.
If anybody wants
to send you guys like 10 links and call it a day.
I'm jazzed up, man. I'm jazzed up. Anybody who wants to convince me that Bigfoot is real, like I'm your number one fan. Like, let's do it. Like, I want to talk about that kind of stuff for sure. But like, what we could do, Zach, like if you made something and maybe you send me some links, I have a email address. We can maybe plan a time to look at it together. Maybe make an extended a show kind of segment where we just look at this stuff that you want to bring out, and like because if we plan for it ahead of time, so we're not we let out the make sure that we have time for our callers today and stuff. But like if we plan that out, I'd be super down to do that, and maybe have a guest who's also watched the stuff, and we could just break it down, just have a conversation about it, because I think that's cool, man. Like I don't know. Like,
I don't know. Bigfoot's not that important. I'm more focused on the flat earth.
hold on, wait. No, Bigfoot's freaking important, man. I don't wait.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know why I'm taking your side here on this, but listen, like, if you have evidence that Bigfoot is real, like, I would be shouting on the rooftops, man. I would turn this into Bigfoot Wanted. Truth is Bigfoot. That'd be the name of the program right there. I tell the world.
You just go down YouTube for a week and you'll find pretty conclusive evidence.
I don't know, man.
It's real. That's another huge flaw.
YouTube is a rabbit hole of fake stuff too, though. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
I need a Bigfoot curator. I need a Bigfoot curator that can tell me what's the real stuff and what's the fake stuff, so that we can talk about, you know, whether the real stuff is the real stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I see a very important question. I think you've seen it also. Inquisitive Quandary wondered, is there a metric version of Bigfoot?
A metric version of Bigfoot?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm like a little lost there.
Well, for example, it
Like
would
big
be
yard?
about...
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, say about a big 300 centimeters.
Okay.
Something like
For
that,
some reason, I thought you meant like there's like a British version of Bigfoot out there
Okay.
or something. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, like, I don't know. So, like, okay, so I really want to explore this Bigfoot topic a little more, but you did also talk about flat Earth and some other stuff, because, like, that's worth exploring tonight, too. I think we can make a little bit of time for that. So, like, do you want to talk about a flat Earth a little bit? Because flat Earth is a bit harder to convince me on Bigfoot. I think you could convince me of Bigfoot a lot easier than you could convince me that the Earth is flat, to be honest on that. So. Yeah, so are you, because I posted this on Twitter the other day of a picture of a screenshot I found from Reddit of somebody saying that Hitler and the Nazis were trying to, like, part of their whole thing was covering up the flat Earth and stuff. I don't know. It was a whole thing. Like, the Nazis actually,
that's everybody's thing.
That's okay. So is that legit? Did the Nazis, are they in on the flat Earth stuff?
Oh, the Nazis?
no.
Yeah, the Nazis.
About that.
Okay, I don't know. What? Okay,
I'm more
but
concerned with when people say, you know, all the space programs have to be in on it. That's a lot more valid than the Nazis are covering up the flat Earth.
okay. So the space programs are all in on it. They're all covering up the flat Earth. Maybe the Nazis too. We don't know yet. But the space program's definitely for sure. You're saying NASA and those guys just, like, all in on trying to cover up the flat Earth.
Well, we
That's not their
need
main
to...
goal, I don't think, but it's obviously, you know, you can't openly talk about, you know, the truth when you're on the International Space Station. I don't know if you saw the video. The astronaut admits he basically gave, like, a geographical location where he was in the ISS. You seen that video?
I have not seen that video. I'll be honest. I have not seen that.
So they ask him about the problem, and I don't mean to, like, insult the man, but, you know, if you're trying to be an astronaut, you're probably, like, a little bit on the nerdy side, like you're heavy in your books, right?
Yeah.
Well, like, you were talking about school, and he's like, no, I didn't like to read much, but then I saw that problem, and I did like to read, and it was in the 80s, the hairstyles were different, the clothing was different for everyone. But at the end of it, he goes, and all of that took place in Maine, across from the United States from where we're talking to you now. And then he's on the International Space Station, and then he just looks at the camera, like, extremely nervous, and what's holding his hands together. So it's just a small example of a lot of the shady stuff that goes on with NASA.
So, Zach, you kind of cut out just a little bit there. It's getting a bit muffly, but you're saying that something about how he saw something in Maine, or he made some sort of geographic point, and it wouldn't make sense on, like, a round Earth model. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, they were on the ISS, right? So it's not on the Earth, correct?
Okay, yeah. He was on the International Space Station. Okay.
And he ends his story with, and all of that took place across the United States, across from Maine, from where we're talking to you now.
Oh, so he was trying to talk about something that happened on the International Space Station, and then he mentioned that actually it all took place in Maine.
No, he was just giving a story about his past.
Okay.
He was talking about, like, his school and everything.
So
and then he was saying that took place across the United States and Maine from where we're talking to you now. So he said he was on the West Coast, basically. He was saying he was on the West Coast.
Okay, all right.
I don't see how that supports.
I'm not sure about this one. The thing with the flat Earth stuff is not to demean anything you're saying here, Zach, but what would convince me more than an anecdote from an astronaut per se would be, like, the actual, like, show me the ice wall, right? Like, is the ice wall out there on the Antarctic? Like,
that's a great.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
Because this is what I tell a lot of people about the flat Earth. Like, if we walk outside and I tell you the sun's 4,000 miles away and it's 30 miles wide, and you say that it's 1,000,000 miles wide and it's 93 million miles away, it's going to basically visually look the same. So it's not a real good point for me to bring up the sun or the moon or the stars, because all that's pretty much the same with those models when you really get into it. But the ice world is very, very different, because in Antarctica, they say it's 14,000 miles around, modern day. That's what they say. The flat earthers are telling us it's 60,000 miles around the ice wall, the Antarctic ice wall. If you go back and you look at the earliest explorations of Antarctica, they say it was 55,000 miles in circumference.
Well,
is that closer to 60,000 or 14?
I mean, our measurements of the Earth and everything can change over time as our, tools and stuff change, right? Like just because
that's a drastic change. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I mean, we used to draw our maps with the United States and stuff when we first come over. I mean, like, you've seen what the early stuff looks like. I mean, it doesn't match up to our current maps of how we view the world now. Like, that doesn't really impress me as much, just because some scientists, decades ago gave a different number than what we have now. And I don't know, like, to me, it seems like everybody who's ever tried to debunk this flat Earth thing, I mean, you could take a GoPro and put it up on a balloon and set it up in the air and even show that there's, I don't know, it seems a bit tiresome.
GoPro, that's your evidence?
Hey, man, look, there's people who've been shooting rockets up there for a long time now. Like, I've seen a lot of rockets go up there. Are we saying that all of those are fake too? Like, I don't know. Like, what are we saying when we're at Houston or we're looking at Tampa Bay or wherever they're shooting stuff and they're launching these rockets up in the air, and we have all of these witnesses here to it, and we've got people talking on radios and making sure things are happening and people's lives are at stake? Are we just saying that that's all just a show?
Well, what we can do...
I mean, it's very good. You can do that on a flat Earth pretty simply, but when you give GoPro evidence, they show a curve. When you're 100 feet in the air, they show a curved horizon. So it's obviously not the planet, it's just the camera they're using.
What we can do is draw triangles on the surface of the Earth. And if the Earth is indeed flat, the internal angles of every one of those triangles will add up to 180 degrees. And I assure you that they don't.
Be like flat as a basketball court, so that's not really a great experiment to use when the terrain's moving up and down and there's water and mountains.
Well, it's already been. I wish I could remember where I read, because it was years ago, pre-internet. There was an article or a textbook chapter or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it demonstrated how flat maps of the Earth don't line up, where you'll have a flat map of one section that on a flat Earth would fit exactly with another section, but it doesn't. There's a mile or two off when fitting these things together. And that on a flat Earth, they should fit together. On a spheroid, they don't. And the other one I'd like to do is let's give Christina Koch and Jessica Mayer a call. They were just looking at the flat Earth earlier today during their spacewalk.
Well, here's what I want to know, Zach. This is what's key to me, because this seems like something that we can easily, like, people have tested it and it's been done to death before. Like, I just want to know, like, if I'm traveling on a plane and I'm going from here, and I'm going all the way to England, and then from here I go to Russia, and then from Russia I go to Japan, and then from Japan I go to the United States. Am I actually just going in one big circle, or am I going across the globe? So
you're going in a circle. So
the pilots are tricking me in all the maps I've seen on Google Earth and everything is all tricking me. Like, are the pilots themselves tricked as well? Do they think are they in on it on the at the airports and stuff too, or what's up with that?
Well, I see something here from...
Hold on, I want to hear from Zach here real quick.
Sure.
You can't really tell if it's an obvious ball or if it's an obvious flat plane just by riding in a plane. That being said, there are a lot of pilots, not a lot, there's probably like 10 that I've heard, that say like they're beginning to question what they're living on, because they're spending so much time up there and they're seeing just flat horizon, eye level. It's never dropping like it should if you're on a ball. But the we're doing like the normal thing where like people get into the nitty gritty and they're trying to like, I'm trying to put the little hole in your map and you're trying to put the hole in like my flat earth horizon experience where like, oh, I see this lighthouse that's like 40 miles away and it should be eclipsed by the curvature, but it's not. So like we can go back and forth with little stuff like that, but like if you just look at like the bigger view, the broader view, like where people are making documentaries about whether or not the Earth is in the center of the universe, and then they're confirming that it is, and then that documentary gets slandered and covered up on like an international scale. If you look at bigger stuff like that, or if you look at the videos where they break down like how they say stars look, like NASA does, and then if like people that just zoom in on stars with their like P900 camera or whatever, they zoom in and the star's like pulsating and it's like see-through and it's like obviously not like what they said it was. You start to realize that we actually are on a stationary plane in the center of the universe.
Well, okay, so if we're on a stationary plane in the center of the universe and we're seeing stuff orbiting in the sky, like we can see the International Space Station and stuff like from Earth. I've seen the International Space Station. It's not that hard. You can track it. You know, they have things for that, and you can see it go up in the sky. What is that?
Maybe they figured out a way to pilot the International Space Station around the planet.
So let me get this straight. There's a plane going across the flat Earth that never stops that we can consistently track the entire time?
I have never done that. If you want to attest to that being a thing,
yeah,
you can go right ahead.
You can go online right now, Zach,
and 24 hours.
You can find the coordinates of the International Space Station. If it's a good night, you can see it. You can see it every...
I've seen people track it. It looks like just like a light. And I'm not sure that we couldn't do that with the technology we have.
Well, it's
because
a fake light?
If you come from like where I'm coming from, like my perspective on this is like I've already seen like so much data like pointing towards a flat model of the Earth as opposed to a sphere model. So when I see a light or a machine or something flying around the sky, that doesn't just like revert all the other information I have. Well, it says we're probably on a flat plane in the center of the universe.
This is what's hard for me, because if I show you some evidence and it can be maybe explained away by this or that, we're not sure. You know, it's almost as if I can't show anything that would ever convince you that the Earth is round. You know, because
exactly. Because you're trying to explain away my evidence, I'm trying to explain away yours, and then it gets, you know, we're just kind of poking at each other's theories. But what I'm trying to get you guys to see is, like, if you look into, like, I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole right now, but if you look into some of, like, the false flags that people have perpetrated, if you look at some of the videos that have dropped of, like, officials dancing around, like, stone owls that are 40 feet long and they're doing, like, satanic rituals, and you kind of understand, like, who runs the world and what their objectives are, then you can kind of start to understand, like, why they covered it up. Because, like, a lot of people, I don't think you guys have asked this question yet, but a lot of people will say, like, well, why are we the only flat plane? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly what they're covering up, is because we are the only, we're so special. And that's what they're trying to ignore. Because every documentary you ever watch about, like, science, they're like, oh, we're in some meaningless part of the galaxy. We're over here. We're, you know, there's no God. You know, you weren't food when you died. This.
I don't know,
our galaxy's not important. And it turns out, we're in the center of the universe.
Yeah, but
that's really
I've got a.
They're trying to shut down.
Real quick, Diane, I'll let you speak, and then I do want to move on to our other callers. Who are
absolutely. No, I have just one question, Zach. What would convince you that the Earth was not flat? Is there something that would change your mind?
Great question.
If I saw the spherical Earth for myself and it didn't look CGI to death, I would probably believe.
Okay, that might be a little difficult to pull off, because I guess we would have to put you in orbit or beyond. But the closest I could come to something like that would be the television that came back from the Apollo missions. But that may or may not satisfy your curiosity as far as that one goes.
Well, counter question.
The Apollo missions, you haven't seen them fake that shot? You haven't seen the funny thing happen on the way to the moon where they reveal how they faked that shot?
That's a whole other thing, though, Zach. Real quick, though, I do want to ask, if your standard of evidence is you have to see the Earth itself, you know, outside of any cameras or anything, like you have to be there, is it unreasonable for me to ask that in order for me to believe in Bigfoot, I have to see the Bigfoot body myself?
Not at all.
Good
Yes.
rejoinder.
I couldn't
Yes,
quite hear you.
I like
Was that a yes, or I couldn't quite hear you?
Oh, I said not at all. I mean,
Not at all.
your
Okay.
standard, that's your standard.
Okay, cool.
Especially with the age we moved into, because if I showed you everything I have in the '60s, like I would expect you to believe me. But now that we have CGI and Photoshop, I would have no problem with you saying go
Gotcha.
kill one before I believe you.
Cool. All right. I just wanted to make sure
Can I
that.
close with this quote?
Let's close with a quote, Zach. And again, if you want to make a Bigfoot PowerPoint, I will watch that shit. I'll do it. I understand you're a busy man. Sure, you got other stuff to do, but like I'll do it. And also, I would love to continue this conversation sometime as well. But yeah, go ahead, close with a quote, and then we'll go on to our next callers here.
This is a quote from Bill Nye. If you learn anything from me, it's this. Remember this. The Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go. That's what Bill Nye said.
Huh.
And
okay.
that's I don't know why he said that, but to me, that represents like the firmament, the ceiling to our world. There's a rocket hitting it supposedly on YouTube. Kind of seems weird to me. Don't really believe it. But I do think the firmament's up there. I think it's real. You can probably find some articles on it. It's pretty cool.
We got to talk. Wait, oh man, firmament stuff's crazy because it's like, I don't know, like meteorites and stuff. I don't know how that works with the firmament. That's a whole other deal though, because that's something I've been meaning to ask for a long time. Like rocks from space, right? Like I have a meteorite in my house right now. Where did that come from? Did that break through the firmament?
No idea.
No idea. It was just kind of here.
Just like what's under the flat Earth. No idea.
We've seen meteorites.
The gone is 8 miles.
We've seen meteors fall from the sky to the ground, right? Like, is that breaking through the firmament? Where do those come from?
That might be breaking through. Might be a part of it. Might be transpermeable. Is that the right word?
Transpermeable.
Semi-permeable.
Is it coming from outside the firmament though, or is it a part of the firmament?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Well, I said that was the last question. So I want to get to Zach. Thanks again for calling.
There we go.
And really do appreciate it, man. I do look forward to you calling back again sometime so we can talk more.
Yeah, great talking to you, Zach. Seriously.
Great talk, man.
I love
Nice
it.
talking to you guys.
All right. See you later.
Take care, sweetness.
All right. So there we go.
I do like what Tony Design said. If the Earth was flat, Trump would have tweeted about it by now.
Well, so there's a lot of different beliefs though that we just talked about, and again, the limitations of a call-in show is, look, he's going to be pointing out specific things that we just can't have the time to look up for this kind of format, and that's a limitation to the format. So I'm not going to discredit any particular evidences that he's going to bring up because I haven't seen it for myself. You know, I can't just say, oh, it's all fake, it's all bullshit, because I don't know the specifics of what he's talking about. So we can only talk in generals, right? I can only ask general kind of questions, and that's a limitation. But there are some stuff, like, again, like Bigfoot, you could convince me more of than the flat Earth, because I have way more questions about the flat Earth and the firmament than I would with the Bigfoot. At least Bigfoot, like, there's a tangible, there's a biology to it. You know what I mean? Like there's something that we could study and look at together, even though I don't, my, again, knowledge of anthropology doesn't really account for any other apes in North America besides, human beings. And I certainly don't know of any records of that. But, like that seems more believable to me than just saying, yeah, every single space agency, a bunch of flight people and are all dancing around stone owls, with an agenda to, cover up this thing that we've been saying is true for the past couple hundred years, that the Earth is round. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, It'd be hard to convince me of that for sure.
Indeed. I see that Beach Price says Lavender Lady has a lot of experience with flat Earth stuff. Yeah, that was one of our favorite topics on movie night. For those of you who haven't heard about it, Cy Strike, I miss you, Cy. Anyway, he called it a drinking show with a science problem. We used to debunk all sorts of strange anti-science videos and stuff like that. And flat Earth was a favorite topic of ours to debunk.
One thing I think we've talked about this for doing on Discords is actually watching some videos together and talking about them when we do those Discord hangouts and stuff. We might be
Ooh, sounds like fun.
Because I think that's a great extension of what I think this show is really about, which is being open to anything that comes on, discussing all kinds of beliefs, because I know that I don't want to diminish people and make them feel like they can't talk about what they honestly, genuinely believe because the world makes fun of it. Like he made a good point about Bigfoot. Yeah, people make fun of Bigfoot believers all the time. I've cracked a joke here or two, and like if you're really trying to change somebody's mind, and if you really think that you know what's true and this other person doesn't, the best way to be open to that and having conversations with people is to make them feel like they're not idiots, you know? Like you don't nobody wants
absolutely.
to feel like they're an idiot, you know? So I don't know. It's a whole thing. But
that's one of the objections that was raised to making fun of Christians and that sort of thing, you know, to us atheists. And I see the point. I definitely do.
For sure. Well, anyway, we got some other callers here waiting on the line. Thank you guys for waiting. I do want to get to Dylan here in Albuquerque. Dylan, you're live here on Truth Wanted. Hope you're ready. What is up?
Hi, Dylan. Hi.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going, bud?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. Although I misplaced the notes I had written, so I kind of had to rewrite it real quick while I've been on hold.
Don't feel bad. I do that all the time.
Listen, that's more note taking than 99% of the people who call into this show. So you should feel good about that.
There you go.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to continue the conversation we were having before, and I guess the best thing to do would be to kind of restate quickly what I had said before.
Yes.
Because obviously the Lavender Lady wasn't on, and you probably have some new listeners or whatever.
Absolutely. Context is always welcome on this show, please.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, so I'll start off with the same two questions I asked last time. And I already have your answers, Dan, so this can be more specifically towards the Lavender Lady.
Yes, sir.
And these are not trick questions. Hopefully Dan will vouch for me on that. So the first would be, do you believe there are too many people on Earth? Human beings. Are there too many human beings? Yes. Okay.
Absolutely, I do.
And do you also believe that all babies deserve love?
Yeah, let's give them let's give them the benefit of the doubt before they prove themselves to be arseholes. Let's give them the love.
Yeah,
because I'll go for that.
Until you prove that you're an asshole, while you're a baby, you totally still deserve it. Or even a child, I would say, you know, children, if you're still school age, not yet a teenager or whatever. I don't know where exactly the cutoff would be, but yeah, I think generally young people, in my opinion, all are equally deserving of love and comfort, luxuries. You know, I don't think there's any child that doesn't deserve to have a nice life.
I wish more did. I really do. And I wish more kids had a good life.
Me too. I think, and that's kind of what me and Dan were talking about, and kind of the crux of this whole discussion.
Okay, let's hear it.
This was the idea is that maybe as a society, here in America in particular, is my view, we should discuss adoption before biological births.
Okay.
I'm not saying that everyone has to do that. I just think it should at least be a discussion. I think adoption should be normalized and a lot more common.
Well, being an adopted child myself, I'm with you. Adoption really should occupy a preeminent place in people's minds, because if you're not adopting, if you're having the biological kid every time you want a kid, you're doing two things. First thing you're doing is another mouth to feed. And the second thing you're doing is another lonely kid who would really like a family out there and who's not getting one because he, she, whatever is not being adopted. Yeah, I think I'm following you, and I think I'm pretty much agreeing with you so far.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like this was maybe the right time to call. I was worried.
Yay! I like it.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the position of antinatalism? Is that something you've been acquainted with or you're familiar with?
Is that something that goes along with the voluntary human extinction thing?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I am familiar then, if that's where we're going. Yeah. Because I do know of the Voluntary Human Extinction Project, where it's basically, okay, let's just quit having kids, and eventually the human race will die out, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I kind of agree with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't have as many objections to that as some people would, I'm sure. But yeah, if you look up antinatalism online, most of the sources will just describe if you're an antinatalist, you are a baby hater and you hate human beings and you don't think
no, absolutely not.
And you should,
yeah,
right.
No, I don't see you hating babies if you're an antinatalist. No, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking there's that possibility that you actually love the babies that are not being brought into the world to suffer. That might be one way to look at it.
So there is that idea as well. That is how the antinatalists themselves, some people would defend their position. But so here's what the common definition of antinatalism is it's a philosophical position that assigns a negative value to birth. And I think that is a perfect analogy for what the ACA has been doing with the common definition of atheist. The common definition of atheist is just a person who lacks belief or a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know that argument so well. Yes, I know David Silverman versus Steve McRae. I can tell you about both sides of that.
For sure.
So it's kind of my goal here, and I mentioned this the last time we talked, Dan, that I think antinatalism is in due of a facelift. It's time to redefine the word. It's time to take it back and make it a positive social movement.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The way I would define antinatalism, or my neo-antinatalism, maybe, I don't know how people are going to take, trying to define something that already has a definition, whatever. But I think the way I view it is my position is that I would assign a negative value to population growth, or even at this point, a population plateau, because we have too many people on the planet.
I'm with you. I am definitely with you.
So I think and this is kind of my goal, is to normalize adoption and to normalize this idea that having babies is not, the ultimate human purpose or whatever. If you want to raise children, that's still a very noble thing. But I would make the argument that it's even more noble to adopt than to have a biological child.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as Jen with one N mentioned, it's a lot more difficult to qualify to adopt a child than it is to simply pop one out. Now, I'm not going to say that what you go through to qualify to adopt a child is fail-safe. I'm not going to say that it's infallible. In my case, in the case of my sister, we didn't have such a great childhood. That's a story for another book. But okay, that's one case where it failed. But still, the system as a whole is a lot better than simply pop one out and then mistreat that one.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about last time too with Dylan, was like, well, yeah, like and we're definitely not even saying like every single person should be able to adopt. I've certainly met some kids who's from families that it's like, I wish they didn't adopt that kid. I think that they, weren't the best influences as parents for people. And that's certainly something to consider too. But I think, we're probably all on the same page here when we agree that adoption is seen, at least in this country, as kind of just a secondary option. It's not really people's first go-to. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's treated as a kind of backup plan. Like, oh, if it turns out that we're infertile, then we'll just go the adoption route. And
Yes,
that's not something that, of course, everybody wants to change the world. Like, everybody wants to give society new norms. And I would love to give society this norm of, hey, not only is adoption something that you should consider first, but we should consider it something that is noble and something that is good and something that we could positively portray. And not to say that adoption has, it's gotten mixed, looks over the years, I suppose. But like, I'd say we're at a point now where it's like, we talk about like veganism, for example. There's so much like disparaging remarks made about vegans and stuff in media because of how much they talk about veganism, this, and that. And like the anti-natalist, I feel like is kind of in a similar boat. It's like whenever it's depicted in popular light, as you said, it's the same kind of problem where it's like if you actually talk to most vegans or if you actually talk to most anti-natalists, they're pretty chill about it. And vegans are doing what they do for the most part for ethical reasons, and we're doing what we do for ethical reasons as well. We have philosophical ideals as to why we want what we want, and that's not often, given the light of day that it certainly deserves. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where having more one-on-one conversations about this kind of stuff, especially with folks who are, looking into starting families of their own. It always has to start with grassroots movements with these kinds of things. Of course, we got the internet where we can spread our messages as far and as wide as long as there's a computer out there. But yeah, for sure.
And if you have the viewers.
Yeah, for sure. Like obviously, we're going to be talking to people, at least people who watch this show and people who call in. Probably most of them are going to agree with our views, but we definitely want to think of ideas of how we can change people's minds otherwise, as far as what we think is a good idea for people. So.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And wow, it's just, I'm stunned. So I can skip some more of these little side notes. Well, really, the next big point that maybe that's for another time. I think we could go into that idea of should people adopt? What does it take to be a good parent? How do you, judge these things? I had a couple of things written down, but my fiance wants to eat dinner. I'm getting hungry too. And,
okay. Here's what we should do next time, Dylan. I don't know what the criteria is, at least in the United States, and I guess there's state laws that apply to this stuff too, about what qualifications go into, adopting folks, and like what are the exact processes, and that'd be an interesting conversation to have to see,
Yes, it would.
Yeah, how great those are. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on that, but maybe that's something I need to look into for sure.
And Dylan, I want to thank you for this. I want to thank you for bringing this up, because I think this may have to be a topic for a future Coffee with Lavender, or something that I really hadn't thought of, but it's a very, very salient topic to bring up. The whole thing about adoption, and let's think more about it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me that idea.
And it's funny because if I'm going to be this advocate of like, I think more people should adopt, I think I should definitely be more of an expert on the criteria of how, most government systems actually do the adoption process, which I'm realizing now I'm not. And so, that's something I need to change for sure. So,
and there's also
there's a lot of variation. And it's pretty difficult in a lot of states, especially for atheists, which is something we mentioned last time.
Yes.
And I just want to give myself a shout out real quick. I'm going to jump in the chat. My name is Zaidman. I heard you, Objectively Dan, I heard you mention that some people had reached out to you with some good contacts. Me and my fiance are still a couple of years away, but it is time for us to start making those contacts. So if there's any one of those people listening, please look for me in the chat and let's try to connect.
For sure.
That would be just so great.
That's great. That's awesome, Dylan. We're going to go ahead and go to our next callers here, but thanks again for calling in on this topic. And I look forward to more future discussions on it.
I'm liking it.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's like we've talked about. It's so out of all the topics I expected to talk about on this show, the aliens, the Bigfoots, whatever. I talk about anti-natalism more than anything else. we've had this running theme of just talking about this, and I don't know what it is, but like I guess it's just. I guess people just haven't heard it put into words like that before. You know, like it's not really a position people have thought about or had much, you know, of an opinion before. So I'm happy to talk about it as long as people are interested. I don't want to be, you know, repeating the same things every week because it does feel like that sometimes. It's like, oh, here we go, talking about it again. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool that more and more people are getting kind of introduced to these ideas and maybe forming opinions on it. So
And Dylan, you mentioned you were going into the side chat. I hope I heard you right.
So-
say something so I can subscribe to you. You're probably someone I want to talk to in the near future.
there you go.
So let's go from there.
There you go. All right, we got about 2 more callers here that we want to get to before the end of tonight's show. I want to go to Dave in Austin, Texas. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Hi, Dave.
Hey, it's it's the same Dave you've received calls like 5 months ago.
Yes. And
What,
so,
Dan? Do you have regulars here? What's going on?
It seems like it. Now, Dave, for those of you who are catching up now, Dave called us a while back about his Jehovah's Witness aunt. It was kind of telling some stories about that. So did you want to give a brief bit of context to that, Dave? And I guess you have some updates for us.
Yes, I have some closure.
Oh, great.
On June 21st, my aunt officially left Jehovah's Witness.
Really?
Hey!
No kidding.
All right. Yeah, we've got...
she reverted back to Catholicism. I mean, she's still in some sort of cult, but...
Baby steps. Okay, just baby steps here.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, that's definitely a story, Dave. What's up with that? So your aunt who was super Jehovah's Witness, who you had several conversations with...
Someone told her about the 1930 mansion ordeal, about, like, the Jehovah's Witness donations going towards this huge mansion that was being built by one of the governing body members for some random reason. And she also heard about the Stay Alive Till 75 ordeal, and she's like, I think you're right. This is just a bunch of snake oil.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow, that's amazing. That is really cool. So you just broke down kind of the history of the Jehovah's Witness organization itself and kind of, you know, broke down like some of the kind of shadier stuff in its past. And that actually kind of rang true to her, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Man, okay. Well, that is something to celebrate. Now, she's a Catholic now. What was her reasons to converting to Catholicism?
The reason why so basically, she was also in Catholicism before she joined Jehovah's Witness. My family has had a history of Catholicism. My grandmother was a Catholic, and she raised all, like, my father and his siblings Catholic, and like eventually they all stopped being Catholic.
I know that feeling. I'm an ex-Catholic myself.
Even my aunt, one turned humanist because she did a lot of research, and but when my aunt had her 4th child born, there was this huge problem with them, and it was a pretty big deal. And someone introduced her to Catholicism, and she started praying, and for some reason, her child was all fixed up. Like, she found it.
Were they fixed up by medical professionals, or perhaps some prescription medication? Okay.
I'd say the medical professionals had a little more to do with it than a deity. Yeah.
Perhaps.
I remember in the last call, I asked for advice for how to come out to my parents as atheists. And about that, I kind of, let's just say I spat it out without catching myself. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, my. I hope you did not get yourself into a bad situation that way.
Fortunately, there wasn't much of a negative response, but my mom was saying that she was kind of disheartened.
Okay.
you can't control people's feelings on this kind of stuff.
I know.
Yeah, and
I know.
And listen, I'm speaking as someone who had to go through the same thing with my folks, right? It's like you can control and frame the message as much as you want, but ultimately they're going to be the ones receiving it, and their prejudices, their past experiences, their biases are going to filter in what you're trying to tell them, no matter how gently you try to bring that message to them. And it's not fair. It's not fair, but it does get better. And for most people, I should say,
I would.
Yeah.
I know why she feels disheartened.
Yeah.
Because for basically my entire life, I was raised Christian. But turns out my parents are pretty open people, even though their religious backgrounds.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
Open.
And I will say this too. People ask what kind of things can I send people and stuff to show my parents and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you can send them stuff, but the most convincing thing that they can hear is from the people that they know the best, right? And I think you are going to have a greater effect on your parents than any Matt Dillahunty video or a skeptical breakdown of the Bible, Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm sure those things can have an effect on people, but the people that influenced me the most were the ones that I developed a personal relationship with, and I think that can be said with for a lot of people. So I would keep that in mind too, Dave. If you're continuing to have these conversations, just to there's going to be a bit of a barrier there when talking about it, but you should never feel afraid to talk about what you honestly believe or disbelieve, and they'll make you feel afraid because, honestly, they're trained to do that. That's what they're taught to do. But you gotta stay strong. Call into shows like this. We'll give you all the support you need, and I'm real proud of you, bud. I'm really glad that you did that because you're gonna feel better. If you don't feel better already, you will. So
one thing I will say though, if you're not in a position where you can take care of yourself, support yourself, that sort of thing, you may or may not want to think twice before saying something to people like parents.
Yeah.
If by saying something to a parent, you're going to end up out on the street, I'd say hang on a little while until you can manage a better situation. Other than that, go for it. Yeah.
I haven't been in much religious talk with parents because basically, besides my parents and one of my aunts, if I tell anyone else in my family that I'm atheist, they basically would disown me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not over atheism that it happened to me, but I know the feeling when I came out to the family.
It's basically anything but Christianity. If I came out as any other religion, they would still disown me. But they still have a tiny bit more respect to me than...
I've thought about that for myself too. In fact, I've been like, well, if I came out as a Muslim, would they have treated me differently than if I came out as an atheist, or if I came out as a Buddhist or something? I've thought about that. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that Go ahead, Diane. Go. Oh, okay. One of the things that the person I lovingly call the female slimy bastard, the rest of the world called my mother, would say is, after you got a big story about that one. But she would say, at least your sister has a religion.
Yeah.
When I said that I wasn't. Now, what got those two to disown me was coming out as trans. So I know the feeling about being disowned. But at least it happened to me later in life, and I didn't have to worry about any support issues or anything like that. I began my transition at the age of 52. So I was already out in the world and everything else.
Yeah.
It's just that they just cut me off entirely. And this is where it goes back. Had I said something when I was 10 years old or whatever the hell it was, I would have been a 10-year-old out on the street trying to fend for myself. That's why I tell people anything contentious like that, think twice before you say something. Think of your own safety, your own well-being before any ideological stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gotta take care of yourself first. Even though it's hard, because I know I was very bummed out when
I want to talk about something else
Yeah, real quickly, Dave, what's up?
Yeah, throw it in there quickly.
I mean, I've already told my parents I'm atheist, and I actually already told them that I'm also a furry, but there's one thing I haven't come out about myself to them, and I think it's got to be held back for a very long time.
Please don't tell them you're a Republican. Please don't do that.
They're actually Republicans.
Of course.
Oh my.
There's this one thing I haven't told them yet, but I identify as pansexual.
Oh.
And
okay, fine.
Yeah. Do you think at this point, that's going to be more shocking to them because they already know you're an atheist? No, so you're probably more open to other kinds of ideas and stuff. Do you think that would be any more shocking than what you've already told them about your identity? Or
I don't know.
Yeah, I've never had to come out myself as a sexual identity other than straight. So that's something I really can't relate to. I know that, the atheism stuff, that's a parallel, as I'm told, from other folks who are queer and who have come out that way. But yeah,
heterosexuals.
Right. That's I gotta imagine that's gotta be equally frustrating, if not more so, that you can't express a certain part of your identity. But I would, honestly, Dave, if you've already told them the atheist thing, I don't know how the pansexual thing would hurt too much more. But maybe, I don't know. I don't know your parents.
Think it hurt more if I told them I was Democratic than me being pansexual.
Maybe so.
I think.
Maybe so. Yeah, for sure. Well, Dave, I'm glad.
Don't do that while I'm slipping coffee.
I'm just glad that there's been some progression since last time I talked to you. I mean, changes in your life, family members changing religious identities. You've come out and stuff. It sounds like at least you're in a better place than last time, right? Can we say that much?
Yes, we like that. That's a good thing.
Yes.
Well, good. Well, hopefully, and it probably will. It's only going to get better from here, I think. Keep fighting the fight, and if you need to call into this show for some camaraderie and advice, we'd be more than happy to help out. Keep on getting the good fight out there, and don't be afraid to be yourself. All right, Dave?
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave, for calling in.
Absolutely.
Seriously, thank you.
Anytime, Dave. Anytime. Well, that makes me happy. I love it when people update me on stuff that they called me
that's
before.
a good. Yeah, I've actually had that experience with Seth Andrews. He was so happy to hear about my update when I had. This was a couple of years ago that I had called him after. And the amazing thing about that too is he actually remembered me. I was like, "What the heck?" Well, okay. I have to admit, I am probably one of those people that you would really like to forget, but just can't. Okay.
Why would you say that about yourself? Oh, I don't know about that.
I'm smiling, sweetie. Come on.
I don't know about that, but yeah, no. I'm glad that because I've been there. I've been in that situation, and it's so hard. And it was to be honest with you, so depressing not being able to come out with the identity that I have now. As a non-believer, and to break free from the molds that people have previously thought. And yeah, there's still people in my life today that don't fully know, my story and where I'm at, and that's okay. They don't have to know. But the people closest in your life, that's who really matters. I mean, that's who you would want to know the most. And I totally get that. I think it's harder for people who hasn't had that struggle to really relate to that, because if you're like me before and you were straight and Christian your whole life, it's what do you mean it's hard? You can just tell me, man. But it's no, it's a little more than that. It's a little more of an involved process of self-reflection and really figuring out who you are first before you can let other people know. And so I'm just glad there's an update on that story. I'm just really glad about that.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Mm-hmm. I want to get to this. There's a bear in Canada that's calling right now. His name is Neil the 604 Atheist.
Who the hell is that?
He is on the line with us. Neil, how's it going, bud?
Neil, sweetie, hi. How are you?
Hi, Diana. Beautiful creature, you.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Neil is a big sweetie. I tell you, I love him so dearly. If you haven't subscribed to him, please do. Okay, that whole bit. He's got some fantastic stuff out there. What's up, sweetie?
Well, I just thought I would call in because I saw you were on the show and I thought I'd surprise you. But unfortunately, Dan said something about me being a bear and,
Well, I saw you in the side chat complaining about me. Come on, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Listen, I have to save the best for last, right? That's
my. Yeah, Neil's the best. He's always...
What's up, Neil? Welcome to Truth Wanted. Back at it again.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
But last time I was actually on the show and not a call-in.
Heck
but,
yeah.
This was fun, man.
I understand
I see you want to talk about morality. That's what I have here written down.
Oh boy, that's fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'll bring that up in a second here, but I just wanted to address a couple of the topics that were there earlier, especially the adoption one.
Sure.
Diana, if you need, I was adopted. All right, I was conceived in a '57 Chevy. Yay me! And
Neil, how many times are you going to tell me the story about how you were conceived in the '67 Chevy? I've heard this too many times.
57. Come on, get the right decade here.
Well, come on, man. How cool is that, right?
I'm not saying it's not cool, Neil. I'm just saying it's not what I want to think about before I go to bed at night. And I do this show before I go to bed, and so it's just the whole thing. It's just the whole thing. Okay.
All right. Well, I didn't mean to preempt
You're good.
with nightmares or anything.
You're good,
brother.
Neil. It's all good. Anyway.
But the adoption thing, yeah, I'm very much for adoption, obviously, because I was adopted. And Diana, if you want someone in on your Coffee with Lavender talk about adoption, of course, I'm game. And I would say,
wait, you're gay? Wait, I know.
Game.
Guys are ruining my show.
Let me get my paper and pencil out here. Just let me write that down. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Oh, Lord help me.
I think when I was down there and we were hanging out and stuff, I think I talked a little bit, I think, about this with you about what's the best way, do you think, to respond to theists that say, how can you have morality without God?
Yeah.
I
love this because for my own personal journey, this was one of the hardest things for me to this was one of my biggest struggles, was trying to answer this question, which in some sense is almost silly now because I live my life perfectly fine and I think I'm a decent human being. But it was I did not have the concept of being good outside of having a religious belief, because the religious beliefs were, all right, here's what you do and what you don't do. It was the very clear set in stone stuff. And it turns out, as we come to the conclusion, reality is a bit more complex than that. And we may not always have the right answers at all times. I don't believe I have all the right answers right now, and I may never will, but I think that we might eventually become closer to a semblance of something that's right or wrong. And obviously, what's going to affect that? Culture is going to affect that. The places that I grew up, the languages that I speak even probably have an effect on that. I mean, a lot of these tiny factors, but there's no religious belief required to believe that you're doing your best, to believe that you can be the best that you can be. And I think it really what it boils down to is, and people have different ideas of what morality is. And I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of that. But if I was to just simply answer the question, how do you do it as an atheist? It's just, I would do it the same way that you would. I'm just guessing here, right? I'm making the best of the situation, right? Nobody told me when I came out, all right, you're an atheist now. Here's what you got to do. You got to follow this. You got to follow that. You got to vote for this person. I just kind of figured this stuff out. It was kind of like a cascade, like a waterfall. This stuff kind of, it just made sense to me now. It's well, I don't believe in God, so maybe, these convictions I have against homosexual people probably don't make as much sense anymore. And I need to rethink that. Maybe there's other reasons why I would be in support of that rather than against that. It's a reevaluation of just, all right, I'm a human being in the world. How do I navigate that the best? And that's really all there is to it. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, although it is, right? But it doesn't have to be.
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, one thing I like is something about which Aaron Ra has spoken a number of times. He attributes it to Scott Clifton, but I've seen it elsewhere. I believe it's called the utilitarian view of ethics or utilitarianism. That which is good or moral is that which increases well-being, decreases needless suffering, or both. That which is immoral increases needless suffering or decreases well-being, or both. And it's relatively easy to see when you are increasing well-being or when you are decreasing well-being. I mean, stomp on somebody's toe and see what they do. I mean, pretty much every time they're going to yell in pain. So that's
probably
throughout. Yeah, throughout the mammals, throughout most life forms that have enough of a brain going on to recognize these things.
Yeah,
it's fairly easy to know when they are in distress. It's fairly easy to know when they're happy. So you observe that and you say, "Oh, okay, I did this." And they started crying in distress. I don't think I want to do that anymore.
No.
Or the other way, they started smiling and happiness. And, oh, okay, I'll try doing that again. One of those deals. And the people who say that we have no basis for our morality are missing that point. No, their basis of morality is, what did I call it earlier today on Twitter? A one size fits every first temple Jew, one of those things, which, the time is way off. You're talking about something 3,000-4,000 years ago. Society has progressed since then, and it's also arbitrary.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you made that distinction.
Society has progressed. Oh, sorry, Dan.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you made the distinction of, I mean, it is in some sense arbitrary. And I think that's where that's where they pick at you at, where it's like, well, isn't your morality just kind of arbitrary? Isn't it kind of based on you? But it's like, yeah, but like, that's all human beings have ever done, like, is trying to figure out stuff for themselves. Like, if you think about it, right, the reason why you might be a Christian is because you want to believe what's best for you. Right? Like, you want to believe, like, being a Christian has clear benefits if you believe the claims of Christianity, right? If you understood the Christian concepts as being a real thing in the world, why would you not be a Christian? Like, you can make a stand for yourself and say, oh, God's a monster or something, but like, there's clearly benefits to the Christian worldview if you are a Christian already, right? Like, that just makes sense. Sure. So, like, as an atheist, it just makes sense for me to have a consequentialist worldview or a utilitarian worldview or a mix between the two.
Yes.
Because that's what I understand reality to be. That's what makes most sense.
Pragmatic utilitarianism.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's my take on that, Neil.
Yay. I like it.
I would agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Well, cool.
And I don't want to keep you guys because I'm sure you probably got at least one more caller. I'm pretty sure it's
one more caller here, Neil.
To call you.
But Neil, it's always a pleasure hearing from you. And thanks again for calling. I do appreciate it.
Hey,
and I'm certainly hoping that I can get some cash together, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to see you at Faithless Forum.
Woohoo!
And we can perhaps sample some single malt scotch.
There you go. Get the gang back together.
Oh, hell yeah!
All right.
I'm going to do some twisting in the arms of both GM Skeptic and Holy Kool-Aid. Maybe I'll be a speaker at the Faithless Forum this year.
Ooh.
Hey, I like the sound of that. Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
Well, Neil, thanks again for...
By the way...
Yeah, what's up?
I passed 1,000 subs, buddy.
Yeah! Woo!
Yeah, I saw that, man. That's beautiful.
Cool.
All we need to do is get me up there. Yeah, like that's ever going to happen. I'm sitting at
in time.
Thanks again, Neil, for calling in.
427 right now.
And thanks again. Yeah, thanks again for being there, watching the show pretty much every week. You're always in the chat, dude. Like, you're awesome. You're the best. Keep up doing what you do, and we'll talk again soon, bud. Cool stuff.
Take care, sweetness. Love you dearly.
Gotta love Neil. Definitely go check out Neil if you haven't already. He's thebomb.com. That man.
He's beautiful.
He is a human bear. I will not drop that. He is a bear disguised as a man. Some sort of Canadian variety. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the fauna
I am one of
the North, but yeah, he's a gigantic man, and I'm a big guy, so that's intimidating for sure.
I am one of the first people that he interviewed on his deconversion show, and it was such a beautiful experience. I loved every minute of it. And cool. The fun part was that I don't have that much of a deconversion story because I deconverted early, and I started questioning maybe when I'm like 10, 11 years old. Mm-hmm. But we also switched over and started talking about my transness, and that was a very good thing to talk about. Get out there and let people know that hey, we don't have three heads and all that shit.
We don't have three heads.
Yeah, what the hell? Ray Comfort hasn't figured that out yet, but neither has Ken Ham. But
right.
Oh man. Anyway,
yeah. So
let's see what else we've got.
We got one more kind of surprise caller here that called in towards the end of the show, and we wanted to go ahead and give him a voice here. This is David in New Jersey, and the note that I have here from the call screener, David, is where do we stand on the flat Earth? So I guess you want to talk more about some flat Earth stuff, right, David?
Yeah, it looks like maybe that got a chuckle. I don't know if that was live or not, but how you guys doing?
Doing all right, man.
Darn good. Thank you.
Talking about all kinds of stuff tonight, so you lay it on me.
Cool. I guess I'll start with, I found your channel, I think, recently because of, I think one of your videos you guys had labeled something with flat Earth in it. So I somehow stumbled upon you. As you know, the algorithms aren't so helpful anymore.
No. They're wicked beasts.
And then what struck me, I really like in the background how you have the open-minded, and you promote that meme. And it's funny because I used to consider myself, I'm 48 years old, and
I remember
for 46 years. Excuse me?
I remember 48.
That's funny. That's funny, and I feel old. So anyhow, I remember, for 46 years of my life, I considered myself open-minded. And you guys ever read a website called Peace of Mindful? Have you ever seen that one?
Peace of Mindful. I'm not sure that I have.
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd ask. But on it, it's a quick story, but it's on the changing of minds, it's called. Have you guys ever heard this? Real quick. I remember once it was in a bar during the 1930s, and there was a drunken debate going on that was trending on towards violence when something so unusual happened that everyone froze in place. The silence was like a soft winter snow falling in the woods. Everyone looked on in wonder. A guy sitting in the corner and surrounded by empty and half-full glasses of beer announced that he was persuaded by the logic of his opponent to change his mind on a subject. It had never happened before. It has never happened since. Do you like that?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's interesting. I'm looking at this. Is it peaceofmindful.com?
Yes.
Okay, so I have found the right one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's about 4 stories down. It says it's on the headline is on the changing of minds. But I just found that one recently, and I was like, wow. I was like, that literally. I believed I was open-minded for 46 years of my life. And when it came down to it, if somebody had asked me, what makes you so sure that you're open-minded? Who has changed your mind ever in your life that makes you consider that you're open-minded? If somebody would have confronted me with that, I don't even know if I would have listened to them, but I know for certain I had nothing to prove it.
Yeah.
So I'd ask you guys, what makes you guys so sure you're open-minded, just out of curiosity? And by the way, I'm not trying to point a finger, but what makes you so confident?
Fantastic question, David. I am so glad you asked that. What a great question to ask. I will say for myself, I would have called myself open-minded until a couple of years ago. So my big takeaway that most people know me by is I was there's a video of me being a Christian on a Christian campus having a conversation with atheist Anthony Magnabosco, and we talked about religion and stuff, and mostly it was him asking me questions about my religious beliefs.
Oh, wow.
And, I'm an atheist now, so that's a big transition in my life and how that happened.
Agree.
So I went from pretty religious Christian to atheist talk show host, right? And so like that's a transition I can mark to, and along with other kind of political beliefs that kind of followed in suit with that, I'd say I definitely leaned more right than I do now. And so yeah, there's kind of a cascading effect of different changes that happened with that. So that's my one claim to saying, hey, I was open-minded about this and I changed my mind. I maybe I could think of some minor examples, but that's probably the biggest thing in my life that I'd say.
So
Diana,
wait, this was rather recent that this happened to you, Dan?
I was 19 years old when I had that conversation. I'm 23 now. So
so it was a little farther back than
yeah.
Because I've had the opportunity to talk to Anthony, and he's such a sweetie.
Yeah, he's the best. He's super cool. But it wasn't just that conversation with him. I've talked about this a lot of times. But really, it was a combination of things, talking of other conversations with people, doing my own research, trying to figure out what's true, talking to Christians and atheists alike, trying to, figure this thing out for myself. And I hope that the conclusion I come to now is tentative and that I'm open to changing my mind on that. At least I tried to. And that's what kind of inspired this show, was having, open conversations just like the one that I had a few years ago, and trying to continue that in a call-in show format. So yeah,
nice. Good for you, man.
Yeah,
good for you.
That's right. So I'm sure Diana has some stories as well about changing her mind.
I try to be as open-minded as I can without my brain falling out.
Yeah.
One of the things that leads me to believe that I am truly working on being open-minded is the degree to which I second guess myself. It's always a case of, okay, here's what I'm believing, here's my position, but wait a minute. Is that really the position to have? And why do I have it? And should I have it? It even extends to my identity. There's not a day that goes. There's not a day that goes by that I don't question. Was transitioning the really right thing to do, that sort of thing. So if it's that close to home, hopefully that means I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you guys, I feel the same way. But who knows whether or not I'm just confirming my own beliefs, though. But it sounds similar to how I feel on a daily basis. I'm like, man, I go out and I do flat earth activism. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I hope this evidence is good evidence. I found it to be persuasive. I know that you guys, I don't think, feel the same way, which I can appreciate. I think you probably have done some investigation on it. I doubt if all the things that you've told me, you must have applied that to your flat earth investigation before coming up with your conclusion that, I'm wrong, I guess it would be the way I put it.
Sure.
Yeah, I know quite a few people whose performance in their jobs depended upon the earth being a sphere, depended upon the heliocentric view of the solar system. I know quite a few people who, and you're going to love this, who worked or still do work at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and in doing their job, had the earth been flat and they were trying to work on a spherical earth, what they were trying to do would never have worked, and they would have killed people. So, it's one of the things that contributes. Not the only thing, but one of them.
Yeah, no, I guess like a very, like a nice starter point for me is, how do you reconcile, like seriously, because I don't understand this whatsoever, how anybody can reconcile that as of 1972, it's been almost 50 years since that last moon landing. And
sadly.
Have you guys watched that video with like the astronaut Don Pettit? And in the video, the astronaut guy, he says, Don Pettit says, regarding going back to the moon, he says, and it's on video, he says, we lost that we destroyed that technology, and we don't have the ability to build it back any longer.
Okay, now what he was talking about there is we cannot build another Saturn V. We cannot build another Apollo spacecraft. We have indeed lost that technology. I think a lot of the blueprints are gone, that sort of thing. But that is not to say that we cannot build something even better than we had back in the late 1960s.
Well, actually, it is, because what he says is, I would go back to the moon in a nanosecond, he says. So he is saying that we don't have any technology to go to the moon. He's not saying it's just the technology that they, quote, somehow destroyed for some reason that we don't know, right? He's saying, I would go back in a nanosecond, but blah, blah, blah. So he's literally saying there is no way to accomplish that right now. And I mean, if you're going to say that that's because there is no Saturn V missile, standing in the waiting, I'm not going to argue with you. But to say that technology hasn't progressed
hold on.
that point.
Well, what we've lost.
Let me ask this, Dave, because I'm confused, because if he's saying going back to the moon, like he's saying he's been there, so obviously the technology was at least there, at least in the context, right?
That's an assumption, right? I've never been there. You've never been there. If they're lying and he's in part of the lie, then of course he's going to. I even use it mistakenly in my own. Excuse me for cutting you off, but you follow what I'm saying? Like, I even use going back because that's what everybody assumes.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, because I haven't seen the original video, right? I don't know his exact verbiage there, but that would be kind of confusing to me.
You can look it up right now. It's literally, you
unfortunately,
can still find that.
We can't play videos while we're doing the live stream here.
Right.
But
what we have lost, I will say this up one side and on the other, we have lost the will. We have no idea in mind about what we want to do in the realm of space exploration. We have
How do you know
no
that?
idea.
Who are you speaking for that you can say that so confidently? I didn't ever really have the will or not have the will. Who now are you specifically speaking for a NASA administration?
Well, I'm speaking of the friends of mine who work at NASA at the various facilities. They are very, very frustrated.
And they're in charge of NASA going to the moon?
Not of the moon program. They're at various facilities doing various things.
So how are you confident we have lost the will?
Because the whole political environment.
Or are you just supporting? No, honestly, because really you don't have any facts to say that you know for a fact that the reason we haven't gone back to the moon, you're just using that to support your current belief, I believe. Wouldn't you have to agree with that?
There's the possibility that is the case.
Cool.
I think I personally think it's a small possibility, but there is that possibility. Yeah, it's now the thing is, the other thing, do we want to go back to the moon or do we want to do something else where we can learn more? That's another question to ask.
With that, I would say, how about rattling off all the benefits we've received as society for spending $56 million per day with NASA for like the last freaking 50 years? I like to look at it that we could literally help 1 million people who are homeless and dirt poor. We could give those people, and not to say that I'm all for socialism and whatever, but literally, what would have more benefit for society in my mind?
Here's the thing.
I heard that argument back in the 60s.
Well, yeah, we don't. That money doesn't just get dumped in a garbage bin somewhere. That goes into the economy. We're paying people to do jobs. They're building things. They're transporting things. I mean, like they are doing. They're
potentially lying to us too, though, right? Isn't that a possibility?
Well, there's always going to be the potential that a government is lying to us in some way. But I've been to Huntsville. I've seen the replica Saturn V rocket. I've been to Houston. I've seen the stuff that they are doing on there. I don't have any reason to believe that.
Have you seen the lunar lander?
The lunar lander. I've seen the model of the lunar lander. I certainly haven't seen the real thing.
Have you ever seen photos? You got to look at the photos of the lunar lander up close. There's one video of the lunar lander when it takes off from the moon, and the entire side of the lander literally blows out, and you can see it blow out by it destroyed the entire side. But there's no mention of it.
So
I do know.
You guys know because you believed in Christianity and you switched and now you're an atheist. So I know that you are able to. I mean, what you had to be able to overcome to come to a different belief like that is not easy.
Yeah. And David, you should know that yourself as well. If I'm presuming you at once believed that the Earth was round and that NASA was
46 years of my life.
Yeah,
right.
and that NASA was an entity to be trusted. So you know that that's going to happen more than just a single conversation here, right? For sure.
Yeah.
But just to get the ground running, right? Just to even get started with a conversation like this, we might be coming from two different vantage points as far as what kind of assumptions we make about how our government works and how maybe science works. And so there's a lot of individual issues that we could look at and see. I see that, maybe your approach right now is you want to talk to us about specific claims that NASA has made or specific, observations that we can make about NASA that we can test whether or not are true. And I think that's an interesting angle. But if the topic that we want to talk about is flat Earth, I think we can broaden that a little bit more. I think
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I can tell you one issue or ask you a question that will help me right now determine the likelihood of your ability to actually research this in a good manner, or at least somewhat. When did you guys first look into flat Earth?
I mean, the flat Earth thing for me, this started probably a few years ago, probably when most people were getting caught. I don't know, 2016 onward maybe is probably when I first really started hearing about it. What would you say, Diana?
For me, it was also recently because I recently got involved in. I was actually one of the people who was doing some of the debunking. I've spoken of the movie night previously, and SciStrike. Working with that is where I got involved in debunking the flat Earth, and that's been just the past couple of years.
So, did you go to work right away in debunking flat Earth? Like you had an agenda that it was wrong from the beginning?
Well, at the very first I heard it was, no, this can't be right. If this is right, then every bit of physics I have learned in the previous, 30 years is absolutely wrong. And then I started looking at it. And part of the debunking is looking at it and trying to verify it. And it's not immediately running in and saying, no. It's no was the first knee-jerk reaction I had. And then after that, it's okay, am I justified in saying no? And I did come to the conclusion, so far, yes, I've been justified. And notice I say so far.
Yeah.
Maybe something will come up where it turns out that the Earth really is flat and we can actually prove it. Now, I rather doubt that's going to happen, but what if it does? If it does, I have to change my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no choice.
And here's what I'll say about that. I personally haven't seen enough evidence of a flat Earth to convince me of that position. And if we're putting things on the scale, to me, it's just the round Earth just has. It weighs a bit more. I mean, I mentioned a few minutes ago, I got the opportunity to go to Huntsville this year to see where they built the Saturn rocket. And the Huntsville Space Center out there is really cool. You can actually talk to some people. They have volunteers who used to work at NASA.
You can visit Santa Claus. You can visit Santa Claus, too, and he can have a big home and everything. It doesn't necessarily prove that he's real, right?
Well, if I'm visiting Santa Claus, then that would prove that he was real, right? Like if I actually got to visit Santa Claus.
No, I'm using an analogy like as a little kid, you can go and you can see Santa's house that they put up in the mall, and they tell you that, and you go, there it is, and the kid goes, yeah, that's real.
Well, talking to a scientist about jet propulsions on the Saturn V rocket, I mean, this is the cool thing. This is what I was trying to get to, right? At Huntsville, they have the former NASA workers that come volunteer, and they come talk about some of the projects that they've gotten to do.
So you're lucky enough to have met some of those folks as well.
Yeah, if the conspiracy. Well, let me ask you this, David, because
David, let me get to this actually.
David, I mean, you can build the conspiracy up more and more and say that these people are paid actors, but where does it end?
Wait. Well, all right, I hear you. But just because something seems impossible to you doesn't mean it necessarily is.
True.
With that, I would ask you, what firsthand evidence do you guys each have? That firsthand knowledge that tells you that you live on a spinning ball, not NASA.
Oh boy! Now that's I'm going to call that a fallacy because not every one of us can obtain that first-hand evidence. Not every one of us can go halfway between the moon and the Earth and look at the Earth out there as a ball of rock.
So the only way in your mind
what we can do.
Like, let me start with this. You know, you guys, they tell us we're spinning, right? You guys know how fast we're spinning at the equator?
Yeah,
but
360 degrees in 24 hours.
Speed is relative, though. That's not like the only reason.
But my question isn't what we're relative or not. Like the question is that we're spinning 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. We're circling the sun at supposedly 66,000 miles an hour, while the sun travels through space supposedly at 500,000 miles an hour.
Correct.
My question to each of you would be: do you feel even the slightest bit of motion, and have you ever?
This is a misunderstanding, and this is a misunderstanding of how physics is. Okay, so like if I'm talking about a car moving 60 miles an hour, okay, that's because it's
in a circle.
Listen, please listen. Okay, David, if I'm talking about a car that's moving 60 miles an hour, okay, that's relative to me. If I was moving 40 miles an hour in the same direction, then that car is going to be moving 20 miles an hour relative to me, right? You would agree that if I had a speedometer and if I was in another car going 40 miles an hour and I checked out that other car, it would be saying it's going 20 miles an hour from me, right? Do you agree with me?
Well, you're using an analogy that's a false
David,
analogy,
do you agree with me, though? Do you agree with me?
Do you
agree with me, David?
It's a circular.
David, you can bring your argument to me if you want, but you have to finish out my analogy first. All right, it's only fair. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
If I'm going 40 miles an hour, another car is going 60 miles an hour. You agree? If I'm in that 40 mile an hour car and I get that speedometer, it's going to say 20 miles an hour, right? Right. Do you agree with me?
The difference between the two.
Yes, because speed is relative. Okay, and so even
fine.
though we're going 4,000 miles an hour, whatever the number is, right? It's because relative to us, we're moving still because we've always been moving at that speed.
Right, but I think you're missing my point. My point is that, like, let's say you get on a merry-go-round, right?
Yeah.
On a merry-go-round, like you could be going like 3 miles. You can move a merry-go-round very slowly, and you can feel that force trying to push you off of it, right?
Well, here's the other thing. Have you ever flown? Have you ever?
Wait. Let's let David finish out what he's trying to say first before we.
Okay, fine. We can do that.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting crazy. I apologize. Everyone tells me I'm getting triggered, and they're correct. So I apologize, guys.
Not a problem. Not a problem. This is fun.
My point is, and I bring this up to people, is that supposedly we don't even move in a circular orbit around the sun. It is slightly elliptical, and in an elliptical orbit, you are actually having a acceleration and a deceleration that is taking place. So never do we ever feel that acceleration or deceleration.
Well, I mean, if we're moving at a speed that's, again, if it's slight enough to where it happens, I mean, if I had a car, again, going 60 miles an hour, and I slowly went down from 59, 58, 57, I mean, you wouldn't be able to feel that much either, right?
Well, here's my thing.
You would, but if you're talking about driving in an elliptical manner,
would you know the difference between 60 miles an hour?
Not only do you feel it, but you would see it. Like if you put a coffee on your dashboard, you would see the liquid be affected by the change, wouldn't you?
Its speed is relative, though. That's what I'm saying. Like if the coffee mug is already moving at the same speed as the rest of us because we're all moving on the ball.
But I'm saying remember, I just said an elliptical. Listen, I'm not wanting you to agree with me. I'm just wanting you to say that, yes, that is a fact. If you're driving your car in an elliptical manner, even if you're going at a slow speed, when you start to make the change in whatever I don't know the physics to describe that in the arc, you are going to see the water have.
Yes, I agree with you there. But, a track is going to be different than the size of the Earth's orbit. Like, that's huge. Okay? And so if we're talking about two different sizes here.
Right, I agree. Momentum. But we're also talking about a much different speed, 66,000 miles an hour.
For sure.
The Earth is supposedly spinning. Yeah. So along with that change in size, you're getting a change in speed.
Well, Robert Hamilton says hyperskepticism, the fuel of conspiracy theorists. No, not hyperskepticism. I call it contrarianism. It's like whatever you say, it's no. David, I'm wondering, have you ever flown aboard a commercial aircraft? Okay. Do you feel the speed when you're in flight?
Not when you're just at a constant rate of constant speed. I don't think I do. No.
Do you understand that when you're in that aircraft, you're flying at about 600 miles an hour?
Sure.
And you're not feeling it.
I'm flying straight though. I'm not flying in an elliptical pattern, am I?
Again, though, but we're talking about the relative size of the bodies.
Is that true? That's not a good analogy unless you're going to put that in an elliptical pattern.
We're not talking about planets moving. We're talking about small objects on Earth. If we're talking about planet-sized objects, you got to expand this out. It is going to be different.
Okay. All right, to get away from that then. Yeah. So my point is that our senses tell us we are not moving. That you would agree with that, right? Our senses tell us we don't feel any motion.
Our senses has adapted to the current system that we're on Earth, and so it would be haywire. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't help us at all if we felt the movement of the Earth all the time. So yes.
Okay. So you believe in evolution then, because you're saying they have adapted?
100%.
No, I do not believe in evolution.
Yeah,
I accept. Now I'm getting triggered.
Whatever. Okay.
I accept the overwhelming evidence.
Okay, yeah.
That supports the theory of biological evolution with natural selection.
Yeah,
it's nothing about believing in. They are showing me how it works.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But can you prove it yourself?
Evolution?
Sure.
Yeah.
I have. Yes, I have performed many of the experiments that support. Yeah, you see, what I haven't mentioned
genetics
tonight.
Classes, like you can do that stuff.
Yeah, what I haven't mentioned tonight because it hasn't come up.
Yeah,
I have a background in biology. I've done a lot of this work. Mm-hmm. I don't have a job in a lab, unfortunately. I was not able to complete my PhD back in the late 90s, which that's very unfortunate. I wish I could have stayed in academia, but I fell ill.
Are there scientists who don't agree with evolution at all? Are there any that you know of?
There are some, but
there may be one or few. There may be a few out there.
They work at like the Creation Institute and stuff,
So they I guess their evidence or their. I mean, is it all creation based? That is their argument. They don't have any other argument that would be quote scientific based.
Most of them are.
By the way, I don't know.
I'd say yes. So specifically, yeah. There's a lot of them that are creation based. There are some that try to bring. I guess you'd call it secular arguments to the fold when it comes to evolution. They definitely exist, but they're the minority. It's kind of like with climate change. Like the majority of like climate scientists. It's like what 97%. Yeah. Like I'd say it's probably even smaller when it comes to evolution in the field of biology, but I don't know.
Okay. I'm just getting a feel for you guys.
Yeah.
Now I'm fine with that because I can't prove that that evolution isn't true or is true myself. I have no clue.
Yeah.
My next question though would be then regarding the Big Bang. Do you believe that that's a fact, or do you just believe that it's a likely scenario?
Well, let's make this the last topic of conversation because I do want to wrap things up tonight. And David, as we're kind of closing out here too, before you go, I'm going to put you in with our call screener because we definitely want to get your info so we can talk have more conversations in the future if that's something you're okay with.
Sounds wonderful.
Cool. I have a channel too, my Zoom Truth channel. I do live streaming too, so you guys would always be invited on if you ever want to come on and.
Thank you. Yeah, cool. Beautiful.
So quick on the Big Bang, Diana. I guess you had an answer. You can go ahead first, and then I'll say my piece on it.
As far as the Big Bang goes, that is an explanation that is so far the most likely to explain how the universe, I'll use the word evolved and developed. The Big Bang is not actually an event, it's a process. The Big Bang is still going on right now. The expansion of the universe
that's assuming that
Big Bang.
It's true, right?
Well, in other words, the expansion of the universe is what we're calling the Big Bang. It's a matter of definition.
Yeah.
And we can measure
if
the expansion.
You can't say for sure that that's a fact, then to say that that it's actually going on now as we speak is kind of hard to accept that. I believe it's going on right now would be a good way to put it, I think.
Well, the expansion has been measured. It is measured over and over again.
Yeah. We can use the stars. Those stars in the sky have never moved. In the north, the North Star has never moved.
Not true.
It's kind of
no, not true at all. You can
It
actually
has.
observe the motion of, for example, the North Star. It is very slight, but it can indeed, with the proper instruments that are accurate enough, that are precise enough, you can actually see. It's over a period of time. It's not one night to the next.
Over how long a period of time has it been?
Oh, let's see. Say a period of decades. You can actually measure that.
Yeah.
So say from
you guys measured it?
19.
Yes.
No.
astronomy.
I've talked about this before. It is not absolutely necessary for every one of us to do the actual. Not every one of us has access to the instrumentation, for Christ's sake.
Right, but also
Right,
you
but
can measure.
At that point, you do have to accept that. Then now, when you're taking on secondhand information from
But
men
I'm not,
we know
David.
are liars.
David, when I was in college, I measured the brightness and magnitude of stars, and I did this myself. I mean, you can do this in a classroom setting. You can understand these things. Yeah,
what
definitely.
does that prove?
Yeah, you know about parallax. Yeah, this is stuff you can do yourself. You can do the calculations.
I'm quite sure that parallax has never been proven.
Parallax.
No, for fuck's no.
I don't know. That's
The unit called a parsec derives from measurement of parallax. The distance of one parsec is the distance at which the measured parallax is 1 second of arc, parsec. And it derives from an actual measurement. And God, when it was in the 19th century that or maybe earlier, that the parallax of the closest stars was measured.
Right?
Now, let's do it for the hell of it.
okay.
Yeah, if you Google parallax proven.
I don't know where this is
fine
going.
With,
I feel like
it'd be amazing to me if I've been wrong all this time, but who knows? Maybe I have been lied to.
It's definitely something to look up and consider. But we are out of time here. We have gone a bit over time for this program. So, David, I'm gonna put you on with our call screeners so we can have future conversations, and definitely can keep in touch. But I do want to say thank you for calling in and making this conversation and this episode.
Yeah, thank you,
super
Dave.
interesting.
Sincerely, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks. It was nice speaking with you too.
Absolutely. I hope you have a great rest of your night here, David. And yeah, we're over time here, folks. We want to kind of wrap up the episode. I want to give big shout outs to the crew in the back who help make this show happen every single week. If you can get the crew cam, there they are. Those guys are awesome. And I also want to give a big shout out and thanks to our guest here tonight, Diana, the Lavender Lady. Diana, where can people find you at if they want to talk to you in the future?
Okay, I am at the YouTube channel, The Lavender Lady. I can throw that in here. Twitter, I am at Lavender Lady 0. I have a Facebook page, The Lavender Lady. Notice there's a little bit of a pattern here. Okay. Thank you, IQ, for putting my YouTube channel up there. And as I say, my Twitter is Lavender Lady 0. My public Facebook page is The Lavender Lady. And if you want to come down to Pittsburgh and have a sandwich with me at the local Eaton Park, that's fine too.
Cool. Well, there you go, guys. Again, this is Truth Wanted, the weekly call-in show where we talk about what people believe and why, live every Friday night at 7 o'clock Central Time. I am your host, as always, Objectively Dan. You can find me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan, and you can email the show at truth@atheist-community.org. And we are open for new guests right now. I'm taking inquiries from online sources just out of the blue. I used to be kind of people I knew and kind of vetted circles, but I'm kind of opening the doors a little bit, opening the gates, so to speak, for more people to be on this show, because this show is about community discussion. And it's better when I have a new guest every single week. So definitely email the show or message me on Twitter if you're interested. Also, like our Facebook page and join us in a second here to talk on Discord. We're going to hop on Discord for a bit, the Atheist Community of Austin.
Yay!
Discord, and talk with some folks here. And I don't have any more announcements besides that. Look forward to Truth Wanted merch in the future. Oh, one more thing. Of course, if you really like the show and you want to make it better, you can donate to us. It's going to be patreon.com/Truth Wanted. All of that goes to this show and this organization, okay, the Atheist Community of Austin. I do not receive a single cent of it. It helps make programs like this better and fund community events around here as well. Diana, thanks again for being on.
Well, thank you,
tonight.
Dan, for having me on. It's been a pleasure. It's been a shitload of fun. And I'd like to let everybody know that, as far as Dan was talking about opening up to new guests, that's how I ended up here. I may have been the first person to answer your ad, was I not?
You're one of the first, for sure. I had about 5 people respond as soon as I put out that first bit on Twitter. But again, we'll schedule those guys in the future as well. But
yay!
Let's get some more people on this program because I just love it. Any last words before we close out tonight?
Oh my! I regret that I have but one something or other to give for somebody. I don't know. I do want to thank all of you. I want to thank everyone who is here. I want to thank everyone who is not here. And as I say at the close of all my shows, thanks a lot, troops. See you on the other side.
All right. That about wraps it up for another episode of Truth Wanted. Folks, come join us on Discord if you're watching live. And remember to always keep wanting the truth. We'll see you next time.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.